Hello and welcome to this week's episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. I want to thank you for being part of the podcast family. Today's show is a very special one. And the reason that it's so special is typically each podcast is recorded about a month before it goes live. But this episode is different. And the reason that it's different is because just a few days ago, I received an email from a listener in Morristown, New Jersey. Shout out to the listener and to Morristown, New Jersey. Thank you for being here and being an active participant in the show. Asking specifically if there was an episode on day one procedures. And as I looked through the entire library and my list, I realized that it had not been recorded yet. So without further ado, here is part one of the first ever two-part episode focusing on the great day one procedure for the best outcome for the patient and for the practice. Welcome to another episode of For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. I've been in practice for over 30 years, and I continue to work in a $1 million practice that I built, ran, and sold. I've taught, lectured, and coached our profession, and helped so many chiropractors build the practice and the life of their dreams. And now, I want to help you do the same. So here's today's show. As I said in the introduction, today's show is all about day one. And again, with a special shout out thank you to the listener in Morristown, New Jersey. If you want to be part of the podcast show and make sure that you don't ever miss a single episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button because each episode has valuable information for you to make your practice better. So now to really dig into this day one thing. In the ideal situation, you've sent the paperwork to the patient ahead of time via email so they can go through it, fill it out, and bring it in all finished. But before you send that paperwork out to the patient, I'm going to encourage you to print out a copy of that paperwork and really look at it, each line, page by page. Yes, I care about the font. Yes, I care how pretty it looks because that says something about the quality of your office. But the main thing that I really want to ask you about is, are there any areas where your paperwork is overly repetitive? And what I mean by that is, for example, on how many of those pages does it ask for the person to fill out their name, their birthday, their address, their chief complaint, any of the different things that you need, and there's no problem asking for any information, but only ask for it one time. You know darn well when you fill out forms for anybody, a doctor's office, a financial institution, when when one set of paperwork is asking for the same information over again, what's your middle name? Really? I just gave it to you on page 1. Why are you asking me again on page 3? Have it clear and concise because that makes your patients respect you that much more and they're less aggravated with you before they even come into the office. I can't begin to tell you how many times I have seen that exact thing when I ask for a client's paperwork when I'm working with an individual doctor. So there's a pearl to make your office that much better. So now you've sent the paperwork out, and if you have the ability, you can see from your email that you sent them, have they opened that email so you know whether they've opened it and at least have looked at that paperwork. It gives you a better idea, is the patient actually coming? And we assume they are coming. But if that appointment was made more than 24 hours in advance, I recommend the day before, in the evening, reaching out to the patient, whether it's by phone, email, text, to reconfirm the appointment with the patient. And the script, if you're actually speaking to them, goes something like, "Hi, this is Mary Beth calling from," the name of your office, "and I'm calling to confirm your appointment here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. And they'll say yes or no. No, let's reschedule. Yes, terrific. And I want to confirm that you know exactly where we're located. And whether they say yes or no, give them instructions anyway. So you know we're at the XYZ shopping center on the left side, right next to the whatever the big anchor is, the food store, the Kmart, whatever it may be. And they'll say yes, and then reconfirm with them. So the appointment's at 10:30, and we work exceptionally hard to run right on time. So if you come in with that paperwork filled out, did you receive the paperwork? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Terrific. You have it? Yes, no. Filled out? Yes, no. If you come in with that paperwork already filled out, we're going to do our absolute best to make sure you're sitting with the doctor right at 10:30. So arrive by 5 or 10 minutes early. So now it's the next day and it's about 10:20, and the fantastic front desk CA sees a car pull up that she doesn't recognize, or a person is coming to the door that she doesn't recognize, and they're looking a little bit questioning, but they're walking in with confidence, and maybe they even have some papers in their hand, and they walk in and they'll come right up to the front desk, and I want the front desk CA to say, "Hello, you must be Mr. Smith. We've been expecting you." And the person goes, "Well, yes, I am. Thank you. Well, please sign in. And did you bring that initial paperwork that was sent to you?" "Yes, I did." And they hand it to you. And then she can say to the patient, "Go ahead and have a seat. I'm going to put your file together for the doctor. Then I will escort you back to the consultation room to see the doctor. We work very hard to run right on time, so you should be right back there right at 10:30. You've now told the patient twice that you run on time. They're beginning to build trust in you that you really do mean what you say. And if for some reason something has come up, there's been some emergency in the office, and you're running 5 minutes late, tell them that. Don't just say a few minutes late. Really tell them what you think. When you go to a restaurant, do you want to be told it'll be 20 minutes? Oh, and it's really only 5 minutes? Well, that's okay, but it's not great. Or do you want to be told, it'll be 5 minutes, I'll have you seated. Okay, and then sure enough, 4.5 minutes, you're being seated. It makes you happier. It's a better experience, and we want to create the best experience right from the get-go. So your fantastic front CA reviews the paperwork, makes sure everything is there that's supposed to be there. If they forgot to sign something or there was one page that they missed, not a problem. "Mr. Smith, can you come back up here for just a minute?" "Oh yeah, what's up?" "You just missed these 2 signatures." Or, "Oh, there was one additional page that I apologize you must not have gotten. Go ahead and fill that out." And they fill it out and then bring it back to me. Perfect. And then with the file complete, with all the proper paperwork done, the patient is escorted back to the consultation room and instructed where to sit and told when to expect the doctor. Doctor will be right in after he does a checkup with one more patient, or he's finishing with a patient and it'll be 5 minutes. Whatever it is, give them the honest truth. And the CA does not leave the file in the room. She takes it with her. But I'll come back to that in a minute. I want to talk about the consultation room. So it's the doctor's office or it's a separate room. But it's a stage that inspires confidence. It's neat. It's clean. The desk is tidy. I like the diplomas to be on the wall. If there are any awards that the doctor has won for specific service or community outreach, things like that, I want that to be on the wall as well. If the doctor has a bookcase in the office, what books are on those shelves? I think the books on those shelves should be an interesting collection. Certainly, a lot of us put our old school books on the shelves, the old physiology book, the old nutrition book, sometimes the biochemistry book, the pathology books. Maybe it's a copy of Harrison's Internal Medicine. Fine, it's embryology. It's all the things that we learned in school. So yeah, those books are there because we all want to put them somewhere if we still have them. So that's a fine place for them to be. But in addition to that, I think there should also be some other books, things that you're also interested in. So for example, on the bookshelf, there's a book called Body by God. I think that's a great book to have on your shelf. And if you haven't read it, it's a really good book. Anything that deals with optimum health and wellness, or anything else that your office chooses to specialize in. If you're a personal injury specialty office, then there should be different books on there on maybe the AMA's Guide to Permanent Evaluation of Disability, different things that really are references to what you've learned so the patient knows what you're into. If you're at all religious, I think it's a wonderful idea to have a copy of the Bible or whatever your holy scripture is right there on your shelf. If you have a relationship with God or a higher power, I think it's important that your patients know that in some way, shape, or form, because guess what? If they do also, they immediately have additional faith and confidence in you as their doctor. The reason that these things are there is so that they start to get an idea of who you are before you even walk into the room. Yes, they see your diploma. Okay, you graduated with or without honors. That's terrific. They care, but they don't care. They see the diploma. Okay, the guy's a doctor. Got it. They see the Bible. Oh, he has a relationship with God. If you do, I don't ever want you to fake anything. For example, if you looked at my bookcase, you'd also see some pictures of the different cars that I own. I'm an old car enthusiast. So yes, I have a picture or two of my old cars. And if the person has an interest in that, invariably that comes up in the consultation. This consultation room, as I said, is a stage, and it begins to talk about who you are, just like or similar to the den in your home. It has some very personal items that you're happy to share at a certain level with people who are important. Patients want to have an idea of who you are beyond just the doctor. Because while it's true, you can't judge a book by its cover, your patients will judge you based on the books on those shelves. Just to finish out this idea, I think those books need to be organized in some logical fashion. They shouldn't be haphazardly thrown in, and absolutely under no circumstances should there be books piled on top of books or files thrown on top of books that are standing up. Again, neat, clean, and organized. The example that I like is think about the bookcase, or the bookshelves that may exist in the Oval Office in the White House of the United States. Do you think those shelves are haphazard, or you think they're set precisely with things that are important to the president? That's what I want those shelves to look like. It's just that important. It's a little tiny piece, but it's important. And as I said previously, the file did not get left in the room. The file goes to the doctor, and then the doctor can review it before they ever walk into the room, because just like the patient is making some inferences about who the doctor is by what's in the room, we doctors don't want to be blindsided by who or what we're walking into when we go in to do that consultation. So for example, think you should look at the chief complaint. What is it they say they're coming in for? Their age. How old is this person? What is their marital status? Because that gives you some idea of what else is going on in their life. What is their occupation? Or are they retired? Also look at who do they list as their emergency contact person? Because again, that gives you some idea of what's going on. If they say they're married, but they're listing one of their children, maybe it is, or some other name, okay, who is this person? There's something going on. Or if they say they're married, and then you look down at the emergency contact and it is their spouse's name, okay, you know what that looks like. You also want to examine the pain diagram, assuming that's in your initial paperwork, and I think it should be. What does the pain diagram look like? Is it a single point? Have they circled one area of the body? Are there giant lightning bolts all over different parts of the body, from top to bottom and front to back? Again, this gives you some idea of what you're walking into. And then as you do that, I want you to get your mindset right. This is a new patient. You're going to be professional, courteous, friendly, no sarcastic remarks. We're simply here to be friendly, not friends, friendly and professional to help this person with their health complaints at this point. As you then walk towards the consultation room, you inform the front desk CA and or the office manager, I'm going back with the new patient. That's a cue for them to tell you, unless the building is on fire, you are not to be disturbed, because this is somebody's health and this is incredibly important. Obviously, if there's some other patient emergency in the office, that's just fine. Obviously, they should get you, or if there's another doctor in the office, that other doctor should handle it unless they absolutely need you. And then you walk into the room, not rushed, and in a confident way with a smile on your face, introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Dr. Freeman. And then pause briefly to see if they introduce themselves. If they do, then they've just told you what they want you to call them. And if they say nothing at all, that's okay too. And as you sit down, you can say, so tell me about that neck and arm pain, or whatever the chief complaint was. Or if it's multiple body parts or the entire body, think of a pain diagram that you've seen with a patient who has like fibromyalgia. You can say something like, I see you've got a lot going on. Do you feel it's one big problem or separate issues? Because again, this tells you how the consultation is going to go. And if they say one big problem, you can simply follow with, okay, so tell me what's going on. If they give you a broad general description, then you're going to need to dig for more details. You can say something like, I'm a nut for details, so I may cut you off to find out some things that I may need to know to help get you better as fast as possible. Or, if they start to give you an overly detailed information picture about one small body part, you can ask if that's similar to the rest of the body or some other closely related part. So for example, if they're having neck pain and upper back pain and arm pain, and they're telling you specifically about the pain in their neck, you can ask them, so does it feel like it's related to the pain in the upper back, and does it feel like it's radiating down the arm? It's a yes or no question that you can then start to put the pieces together. On the other hand, if it's multiple issues, I like to either start at the top of the body and work my way down, so head, neck, arm, upper back, middle back, lower back, buttocks, hips, legs. And if there are organ issues, then we talk about those with the appropriate spinal region as well. So if they say, oh yeah, I have this neck pain and it's sort of in the upper back, and I also have this lower back pain, do you think they're related? No, well, the neck and the upper back seem to go together, but the lower back is totally different. Awesome. Let's get all the information up top, and then we'll discuss the bottom. Very often, patients will start to bounce back and forth between the two in the history, and I just gently guide them back. No, I understand the lower back may do that also, but right now I just want to hear all about the neck and upper back. And when we finish out the history there, okay, now let's go to that lower back issue. And as you're taking the history, I want you to be writing these things down on a piece of paper. Oh, I know, this is the computer age. We all have iPads. We all have keyboards in front of us. We all have monitors. But I want you to write it down on paper. Because when you're writing it on paper, you have a pen in your hand, you're making eye contact, and then you're writing things on paper, the person knows you care that much more, as opposed to the tap, tap, tap of the keyboard. Not too many years ago, I had a longtime patient come into the office after her mother had passed away, and they went to the funeral home, she and her siblings, the next day, and they sat with the funeral director, who sat with a pad of paper and a pen and wrote everything out. Now, this woman works in a bank. She's very familiar with technology and how to effectively move information back and forth, and after he got all the information, she said to him, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Well, of course. What would you like to know?" She said, "I see you have a computer on your desk. Why didn't you just put that information into the computer directly?" And he put the pen down and he looked her in the eye and he said, "Because getting this information and hearing you is more important than recording it in the computer. I'll make sure that gets done later, but I want to make sure that we're really communicating about the things that are important to you." And I think that really speaks volumes about really touching somebody's heart. What people want most is to know they've been heard. And nothing says that louder than you listening to them and writing it down, as opposed to taking transcription on a keyboard. So now I know in chiropractic school, we all learned how to take a history. With over 30 plus years of history taking experience and literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of patients, here are the best questions and the best way to ask those questions that I've ever found, heard, been exposed to, and have learned. Start off by asking them, okay, so we're talking about your lower back. So when did it start? And they'll give you some idea. And then move on to, well, how did it start? And often they give you both of those pieces together, and that's just terrific. Tell me about the type of pain. Is it sharp, dull, achy, stiff, sore, stabbing? How would you describe it? And they're going to tell you about it. Terrific. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the worst pain you can imagine and 0 is nothing, at its worst, how bad does the pain get? And they're going to tell you. Well, at its best, how good will it get? How quiet will it get at its best? And they'll tell you. And right now, as you're sitting here today, where would you describe it? And typically they'll use numbers like, well, at its worst, it's a 7 or 8. Okay. Oh, at its best, it's a 1 or 2. I always know it's there. It doesn't go away completely. And right now, it's a 4 or 5. And asking the questions that way, what they just told you is whether the pain is constant or intermittent. You don't have to ask that question. You already found out. And then, of course, also ask, does the pain travel anywhere? Open-ended, don't give them any suggestions. They're going to know it if it's traveling up, causing a headache, or down their arms, giving numbness in their hands and fingers, or down into the legs and feet. And if it is traveling down the legs and feet, you want to know, is it one leg or both legs? And how far down the leg does it go? The same is true with the arms, of course. But with the legs specifically, if the pain stops at the knee, they've told you it's probably a sacroiliac joint problem. And then you can move on to, you said the pain gets as bad as a 7 or an 8. What seems to really aggravate it? When does it get that bad? And they're going to give you the list of things that makes it worse. All right, so what things do you do to make it better? And they're going to tell you those things. Well, laying down. Was it laying down or is it first thing in the morning? If you take a nap in the afternoon, does that seem to help it? We're not using words like exacerbate or palliative and provocative. Patients don't know those words. I want them to know that I speak plain English and I understand them. I'm right there with them. And that's what you want for your patients as well. And then you want to find out if any imaging has been done, because obviously if other x-rays have been done, you shouldn't take them again unless it's absolutely necessary. The patient is not suffering from a lack of radiation. We just need to get the information from proper x-rays taken a certain way. And what I mean by that is I like standing x-rays so we can make biomechanical measurements. Often x-rays are taken laying down. You cannot make a biomechanical measurement from a person who's laying down. I think you should also ask about previous chiropractic care. And then if they say yes, well, do you remember who you saw? Do you remember when it was? And if they had a bad experience, they will be happy to tell you about it, and you should listen to that. I like to apologize on behalf of the entire profession and assure them that won't happen here. You also want to ask about have there been any other significant accidents or falls? What's their surgical history? Have you had any operations? Do you take any medications? Ask if they use tobacco, cannabis, alcohol, or other recreational substances. And I also recommend asking about a family history. So, mother, father, brothers, sisters, things like diabetes, cancer, stroke, heart disease, high blood pressure. I think it's important to know these things about your patient. And as you're going through the history form that we've just discussed, and they talk all about, say, their neck pain and upper back pain and arm pain, you've gotten all that information on that body part in that specific order that we just discussed. When you then say, okay, now we're ready to talk about your lower back, they already have some knowledge and understanding of what the order and what the questions are going to be. And in the process of getting all this information, you want to be warm. You want to be understanding, be compassionate, and give them assurance that you've seen this before. Make sure you're asking open-ended questions that are specific and guide the answer for what you're looking for. So if they're talking about their lower back pain, how does it feel first thing in the morning? Patient says, well, it's stiff. You as the doctor should then say, so when you get out of bed and take 6 or 8 steps or 10 or 12 steps, does it ease up? And the patient says, yes, exactly. And then as the day progresses, what happens to the pain? And they say something like, well, it's fine unless I sit too long. And then you say, so again, then when you get up and walk, does it seem to ease a bit? And they say, yeah, exactly. You as the doctor have the opportunity to say, I know what this is. And they're going to say, well, what is it? The doctor should say something like, You've led me to a very specific thing, or to one or two very specific things that it could be, but I don't like to guess. So let's do an examination that's going to prove me right or wrong, and then I'll explain exactly what it is and how we can help you with this. So once you've gone through all of these different pieces, and if you believe in the relief, correction, strengthening, and maintenance model that I've laid out in previous episodes, and if this problem has been chronic for the patient or even episodic, I love to be able to say this to the person. And if I find what I think I'm going to find in the examination, then we may have the opportunity to make this episode your last episode. And say that again with warmth, certainty, and confidence. So once you've asked about all the body part complaints, the last thing in the consultation, is there anything else about your health that we have not discussed that you think I need to know? And typically they say no. Sometimes they say, oh, well, I forgot to tell you about my thyroid. But when you asked about medications, they already told you they're taking levothyroxine here in the United States. So you already knew that. And then look at them and say, I have one last question. What would you like me to call you? And make them give you an answer. Far too often patients say, yeah, I don't care. Well, we're going to be working together. Really, what would you like me to call you? And if they feel comfortable, they'll typically tell you, well, my friends call me and whatever their nickname is. Awesome. Then I'm going to go with that, because that's warm and friendly while you still being professional. And then tell them what you like to be called. I tell my patients, and you can just call me Doc. And the patient says, okay, Doc, thanks. And then you're going to specifically use the name that they just told you. So say, okay, Sue, we're going to go into the next room and do an examination. The examination will be broken down into 3 parts, or however many parts your examination is. In our office, I tell them, the first thing we're going to do will be a series of computerized nerve tests. No needles. We're going to put sensors on your back. It's sort of like an EKG, but for the spine. It's going to start to tell us what the different nerves and muscles are doing. The second part of the examination will be a physical exam. We'll have you bending, turning, twisting, seeing what's moving, working, and what's not. Please don't do anything that's going to hurt or make you worse. And if I find what I think we're going to find, we'll end up taking a couple of x-rays, or we'll end up taking 2 x-rays of your neck or 2 x-rays of your lower back. I didn't say cervical spine. I didn't say lumbar spine. I said 2 x-rays of, and then name the body part. Regarding the x-rays, our rule with x-rays is really simple. We take as few x-rays as possible, but we need what we need, and we'll see what the exam tells us. Is that fair? And they go, yes. Often at this point, they'll ask, well, am I going to get adjusted today? If after we've done the examination, I think it's safe to do the adjustment today, then we absolutely will. But I can tell you, I don't want to do anything until I'm sure I know everything. So if we need to take those x-rays, then the answer is no, I'm not going to adjust you today because I want to have time to compare the test results to the x-ray examination to the computerized nerve test to put all the pieces together to make sure we do the exact correct things. And sometimes the patient says, well, the other doc that I saw just laid me down and gave me a crack. And to that patient, I say, any doctor that would treat you without first doing a thorough examination and knowing exactly what's going on with your body, I think you should run from as fast as possible. Don't ever let any healthcare provider do anything with you until they're certain they know everything. Does that sound fair? And they always say yes. And then I'll finish with this. What I can tell you is this. After we've done the examination and I have gone through all of the test results, we'll set up a time to sit down together and review all the information together, and then I'll lay out a plan of how we're going to take care of this together. I keep saying together because it starts to tell them we're a team on this issue and we're going to work together on it. And that, my friends, is the end of part 1 of this 2-part episode of how to do the best day 1. Make sure you hit subscribe and tune in next week as we go through the second part, which is once we're in the exam room and what that all looks like. And I look forward to speaking with you then. All right, and that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.